So hello, welcome everyone. My name is Josh Nadeau. I am a master's student at St. Paul University's Department of Conflict Studies, and I am here to MC this event. So we're here with the Academic Club for Peace Conflict Studies, which is also based here in Ottawa. It was founded in 2015 as an independent think tank and student-based initiative to develop alternative frameworks for peace, conflict, and humanitarian studies in the academic sphere through independent research and analysis at St. Paul University and the University of Ottawa. So because of the lockdown right now, the only project is to organize these seminars, often monthly, on the theory and practice of peace building and conflict prevention. Based right here at the university. So that's who we are. If you feel like saying a little bit about yourself in the chat, some people have already started, that would be great. Maybe your name, if you're affiliated with an institution where you're calling from, that would be great. So this is going to be a Zoom workshop. So after I pass the mic over to the speaker, he will be presenting to us for about 30 to 40 minutes, and then we will have a time for questions. So if anybody has questions while the presentation is happening, please feel free to hang on to them, or to actually also write them in the chat. So if you write your questions in the chat right away, then then I can read them and kind of select which ones might be the most relevant. Maybe a lot of people are going to be asking similar questions, so we can combine them. That just helps us to be a bit more effective because we don't have a whole lot of time today. So we want to make sure that everything is packed. Other bits of Zoom etiquette. So on the bottom here, you'll see a bunch of buttons. One of them is a button for the chat. Please open that up. Then you can see just what everybody else is writing. If you have any comments or if you have any response to something that is said, please feel free to write it in the chat. Or also you can use any of these lovely reactions, which are also in the on one of the bottom buttons. Also there you'll see a button for raising your hand. That you can use at the very end when we're in our question period if you have a question or something quite urgent, although I think writing everything in the chat would also be helpful. So also, again, if you feel comfortable, feel free to turn on your cameras just so we can see you. It's always great when someone is presenting to see a room full of faces instead of a room full of names. So feel free to do that. Great, I see some of that's happening already. Perfect. So then without further ado, I would like to present our speaker, Dr. Babak Rezvani. He is a professional consultant and advisor in policy advisory, advocacy, and research spheres. So right now he's the chairman of the Association for the Study of EthnoGeoPolitics and a faculty member at the Amsterdam School for Regional, Transnational, and European Studies. So he graduated from the University of Amsterdam in political science and human geography with a focus in international conflict and peace studies. And most of his publications are related to the Caucasus region and ethnic conflicts in the post-Soviet area. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, particularly about the disputes in Nagorno-Karabakh, a disputed territory that is of interest to both Armenia and Azerbaijan. This is obviously a very hot topic, and people might have very strong opinions, as happens with conflict and war. So if you have any questions or other comments about the way things are presented, feel free to use the chat, although please be respectful and be mindful that this is an academic environment and one of respect and dignity. So that's all from my end. Now to the speaker.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank the audience. Today I will be somehow broader on the issue. So I want to give a picture on the conflicts in the Caucasus and the recent one, Nagorno-Karabakh, using a framework from geopolitics and the type of geopolitics that we call them the bottom left. So it is multiple actor, not state-centered per se, and it is more applied so it is more policy oriented and closer to classical geopolitics. There are other types of geopolitics I will discuss, critical geopolitics, for example, is a very different type of geopolitics. It is about critically reflecting upon something which has happened. Nevertheless, both of these mainstreams will be used in framework to analyze a case when we are doing so. The critical geopolitics is more about the discourse people are using and how people talk about something. And the other types of geopolitics, so we call bottom left or upper left, is neoclassical geopolitics. They are more about the power relation. This is more closer to the international policy and also domestic policy. So geopolitics is not necessarily a science that investigates a relationship between the states, but also inside the state. Another thing I want to add is why do we call it geopolitics? Well, we call it geopolitics because we believe that geography has influence on the behavior of the states. And some people blame geopolitics to be physically deterministic. Two things. Geopolitics is not physically deterministic. It is geographic deterministic. So if it was physically deterministic, it was only about, for example, the shape of terrain. It was about mountains, about islands, and so. There are some aspects of particularly classical geopolitics which are physically deterministic, but it is in general geographic deterministic. So also the population does matter. Also, for example, the level of education of population does matter. So everything that are attributes to a territory do matter in the geopolitical calculations and ultimately the geopolitical behavior. This is one thing. And being critical and discursive, it is important. So I give one example. It does matter. So I will say I am more close to other types of geopolitics, more policy-oriented geopolitics, but this reflective post-structuralist geopolitics of discourse, it is also relevant. Look at these two wordings, for example, that when we can say the European Union expansion or European Union enlargement. Yeah, the first word, both mean the same thing. The first word has an aggressive connotation. The second word is more neutral. So they can talk in the same terminology about, for example, Russian action. So when we talk about Russian interventions in the former Soviet republics, some people use invasion, aggression, and Russia itself uses more like we are altruistic and we are regulating the conflicts. This is the discursive aspect. Critical geopolitics is also good in another respect, that it is very sensitive for power relations, and not only power relations between the state, but it uses terminology from the society also. from people and projected on the geopolitical conflicts, like the body politics. It's very important in critical geopolitics, like they say, a phantom of territory, or like the territory is amputated, like it was a body. Or some people say, for example, in Iran, the northwestern region of Iran, Azerbaijan, people say, oh, this is the head of the lion. So the Iranian map is compared with a lion. It's like a lion sitting, and its head is the region Azerbaijan, Iranian Azerbaijan. And so it gives an impression that it has been the intellectual center of Iranian politics. Some issues are not yet in critical geopolitics. They do not cover it because they are certain people with certain ideology are concentrated in those circles. But I am one of those who want to introduce thinking about that. For example, if there is a war, yes, everyone is, and correctly, everyone is sad and concerned about women, elderly, and children. Yes, and this is good to be concerned about. But no one is concerned about the young men who are fighting. So it means that basically it is okay to kill the combatants, to kill the young men who are fighting. And I say, oh, I put a question mark on that, because combatants have also human rights. So it is good for critical thinkers, critical geopolitics, to put question marks on that. And that no one is using that. I mean, it is clear why people are using the terminology children, women, and elderly to say, oh, these are defenseless victims. They are not using combatants because, oh, combatants have weapons. But the question which a critical geopoliticians should ask is whether it is okay that these combatants are killed. It is not okay, according to my understanding. And a good politician also calculates and if a lot of young soldiers are killed, the popularity of the leader in one country will be less. So these are some background things. I try to use the PowerPoint, and it could be a little bit unorderly due to older version of due to incompatibility with older version of this PowerPoint. So I collected this PowerPoint in many stadia. Let me find it. This is okay. And F5, I think. F5, F5. There is always a problem with F5. Oh. Why it doesn't happen? There is another. Okay. Now, do you have the full picture? The full? Yes.
Yes, we do.
Okay. Okay. About the Caucasus and ethnopolitical conflicts, and some more discussion about the Nagorno-Karabakh. but generally about ethnogeopolitics and how do we understand from a ethnogeopolitical framework the conflicts in the former Soviet Union, particularly in the Caucasus and Karabakh. So I will tell something about thinking about being a sea power or maritime power, land continental power. These are classical geopolitics, but I use that only as a as an eye opener. But for me, it's important the parameters of the geopolitical power. So which factors, you know, or which parameters, the same thing, more or less. Parameter and factor are more or less the same thing. Determine geopolitical power. So things like size of the territory, location of territory, shape of territory, is it landlocked or open sea? Yeah, is important. Number of neighbors of one country determines the geopolitical situation. Characters of neighbors. So it means which neighbors do you have? Are they strong? Are they weak? Are they unstable? Or are they stable? And whether you have good relationship with them. Also, historical background are important. Some countries are deep-rooted and have solid bases for nationhood and statehood, and some other countries are less rooted in history. At some point, all states are established in history, but some are older, some are younger. And it is also important for the ideology of states to which earlier era they are referring. So they are inheritors of which countries. For example, now I'm teaching in Uzbekistan. In Uzbekistan, the official understanding is that Uzbekistan is not only a successor of a former Soviet Union, but it had its own statehood in the Timurid time. So Amir Timur, the Timurid time, is regarded as a predecessor of Uzbekistan. For example, Georgia had its own local kings of Bagrationi, and the Georgian independence bases itself on the states which existed in the past. The flag, the new flag of Georgia after the Rose Revolution, we see they have taken the flag of the time of Tamar, Queen Tamar, of the golden era of Georgia. And all states try to legitimize themselves in history. Whether they are young states or older states doesn't matter. They look something in history because it is the ideology of the states to have what they call historical tale. Okay. And then we come to the demographic factors. Size of population is important. Welfare of population is also important. And the level of education, important. And this thing is especially for what we call ethnogeopolitics is important. So the cultural factors is ethnic, racial, linguistic, religious diversity. It can be used against the state. It can be perceived as a danger, but it can also be used as a tool to expand, project your power in the region. This is more or less the same as proxy politics. Iran, for example, is very good in this sense, in sense of the linkages, cultural linkages it has with other countries, uses as proxy. So this proxy, they call it proxy war, but you can say proxy politics. It is possible, but there should be some linkages. And these linkages are, in fact, in the Caucasus, and also Iran with the Caucasus and Russia with the Caucasus, and these Caucasian countries themselves. Why? Because they have ethnic diverse population, and in this case, they have significant, historically significant number of an ethnic group, which is dominant in a neighboring country. So in the case of Nagorno-Karabakh, which was located inside Azerbaijan in the Soviet times, but there were more Armenians in Armenia. There were Armenians also in Georgia. It gives Armenia some room of maneuver in the neighboring countries. So at that time, it was no problem. All of them were part of the Soviet Union. But right now, for example, there are also Armenians and Azerbaijanis in Georgia. Before the Karabakh conflict, there were Azerbaijanis in up to 1990s, so up to the collapse of the Soviet Union, there were Azerbaijanis living in Armenia. Okay, so the diaspora can be a tool in international relation, and also the diaspora can influence, have an impact inside a country. Like there are more Armenians worldwide, and so they were the, let's say, Ottoman citizens, Armenians, which are now in different countries like Lebanon. They lived also in Syria. They live also in France and America. So these diaspora of Ottoman Armenians have an impact in Armenian politics. So it can work on the both sides. The diaspora and, let's say, ethnic groups can impact the state's politics, but the state can also use that for projecting a power and fostering relationship with those groups and the countries they are living in. Then other factors are economic factors. So GDP, and especially GDP per capita, is important. Foreign investment or laws for trade especially are important. Some countries have a tax-free policy. They attract foreign investment. And also laws for trade are important in the sense that, is the state protectionist or is it free? Is protectionist like, for example, there are protectionist laws in India, for example, and it does not invite for foreign investment. These laws, economic laws, have pros and cons. So you cannot say that a protectionist state has a worse economy than a state which has liberalized all the economic ties. No, both have pros and cons. level of education and technology in one country is very important for its geopolitical power. So in this case, for example, power of India lies in its IT technology. Power of China is more in mass production, and so in general, the more advanced technologically one country is, its geopolitical power is more. And now we see military. So some people think that geopolitical power is all military power. No, it is not. But military power is also one of these parameters. So a country with good army, advanced weapons, is geopolitically also strong. And other countries have to reckon with that. So in this case, Russia, for example, has a strong military. It does not have a very large population, but a strong military. And because of that, other countries consider that in their relationship, in their calculation with Russia. So this is one of the bases of geopolitical power. Other things are, for example, the legal rights, veto power. There are countries have permanent membership in Security Council and veto power. And it means that, according to the United Nations system, all countries are equal. So a very big country like India has one vote, and a small country like Tuvalu has also one vote, except those 5 countries which have veto power. Right now, Russia, United States, France, United Kingdom, and China. And I use for parameters of power because this policy of ethnogeopolitics and proxy is advanced in Iranian foreign policy, and it is also related to the Caucasus Karabakh. I use also cases about Ukraine, Georgia, and Azerbaijan. I wanted to write. I'm a little bit dyslexic and does not write always well, but we understand when we have the maps. Okay. A scientific genealogy for geopolitics. There are some non-geographic or weakly geographic models versus geographic models. Yes, and I mean geography in broad sense. The type of geopolitics that now we are analyzing in our cases in the Caucasus is a geographic model. And inside geography, it is political geography. And inside political science, it is political economy and international relations. These two streams, let's say these two fields are interconnected. So international relations and political geography, or in this case, geopolitics, are interconnected. And the terminology they use are somehow a little bit different. Inside international relations, we speak about neo-realism or realism, and in political geography, we speak about neoclassical geopolitics. But these two things are the same thing. And when we depart from that, we can compare or we can interchangeably use the models of international relations and the models of political geography. It can be used if we are aware of small technological, terminological differences. A broad, convenient definition of geopolitics is political geography of statecraft. So I didn't use governance or politics, but I used statecraft because statecraft means much more than governance. It is also keeping one state. It is also has to do with the ideology to legitimize the state and so on. Geopolitics can be multi-scalar or uniscalar, state-centric. Neoclassical geopolitics was often, not always, was state-centric. So old German and French schools were state-centered, and the big size global geopolitics, or some people say geostrategy, Anglo-Saxon variant, these were more about groups of country. There are three types of geopolitics. So in other dimension of geopolitics, it can be formal, practical, or popular. Formal is, let's say, these ideas, these theories, they are the academic type of geopolitics. Practical is when they use it in policy. So the state behavior and the statements that heads of state are doing. These are practical geopolitics. There is also room for popular geopolitics, and this is about public opinion. This public opinion is important in state behavior, but for the convenience, we are not taking it into the next model. So this is the model broadly accepted as model of geopolitics. Which type of geopolitics do we have? So we have policy-oriented and reflective academic, and the focus could be only on the states, but it can also admit other political actors in its analysis. So the first group are neoclassical geopolitics, geostrategy, geoeconomics, state-centered, old-fashioned, from beginning the 20th century, and policy-oriented. So the things like the maritime power do have more geopolitical power, or the land power. These were the questions that they were dealing with. Or, for example, the German geopolitics, Ratzel, regarded the states as an organism. Okay. Then academic and reflective, I am critical with this, that you can say non-geopolitics, or it is all political geography. So you can call everything geopolitics, or you can say geopolitics does not exist. So if there is no variation in our definition, in our understanding, then the meaning is gone. So I am very critical about this. But this thing, post-structuralist geopolitics, critical geopolitics, I talked about that. It is academic, reflective, and very abstract. It is the discussion of policy of countries or inside countries critically using heavy terminology, heavy geopolitical terminology. And it is not much concerned with policy, but it is, on the other hand, deconstructing policy. It puts critique on the policy to discuss and deconstruct the motives which were said to be the basis of that policy. Then we have what we call top left, subversive geopolitics, geopolitics intern and extern, and my own school of ethnogeopolitics belongs also to this school. This is that not only the state is the only actor in geopolitics, but could be non-state actors, could be, for example, militias, like terrorist groups, could be that, the large companies are an actor. And don't forget that ethnic groups or religious groups inside one country are also geopolitical actors. So the ethnogeopolitics that we use in ethnogeopolitics, we are concerned and focused more on cultural factors. And also we regard the people aside from the state as formidable political actor. However, it is still the case that in all geopolitical analysis, the states are important actor. Whether we look at supranational organization, at the UN, at the NATO, or we look at the lower level, so we look at inside one country and civil war inside one country, the states are still a very important actor, as we see in the Caucasus right now. To give a general view of what type of schools do we have in, especially in the former Soviet Union, I have put some names on this table. So these are the proximate places these people are taking. So, for example, Zhirinovsky used also ethnogeopolitics, but with a hyphen. He uses EthnoGeoPolitica. This is a different type of ethnogeopolitics that we use. We use it also with ethnogeopolitics with capital E, with capital G, and capital P. And Zhirinovsky idea is a civilizational idea, similar to Samuel Huntington's Clash of Civilization. This is not our type of ethnogeopolitics. So our type of ethnogeopolitics is here, like so more on practical side, but it has also some reflective perspective. Dugin, for example, his idea of Eurasianism and what is a Eurasian civilization and what are the bases of power of Russia, and also what are considered as a Russian duty to intervene in its near abroad, are formulated in Dugin. Dugin is the main geopolitical thinker in the former Soviet republics and especially Russia. And he has a very big influence on the Russian foreign policy. Then Um, Amsterdam School, which originally I came from, it is something between academic state center. So it is something between non-geopolitics and post-structuralist geopolitics. Both of these elements were inside. Two things are nevertheless important. Lev Gumilev theory of Eurasianism, which influenced also Dugin and Zhirinovsky. Lev Gumilev believed in what we call today tribal confederation. So when he is talking about the states, his focus is not primarily on territory, but on people. This has a reason. In the Eurasian steppes, so in Russia and Central Asia, land is in abundance, but the population is small. So the price of people is more than price of land. And this is a very different perspective than the Western perspective, which regards territory as the main important thing. It has certainly to do with our analysis of ethnogeopolitics, certainly. And then we have the Soviet nationalities policy. Soviet nationalities policy initiated by Lenin, but formulated by Stalin. It divided the Soviet Union among, so it's recognized officially some ethnic groups. So ethnic groups, some were recognized and some were not recognized. And those who were recognized, the larger one got a Union Republic, which after the dissolution of Soviet Union became independent. But inside these republics were also autonomous republics and autonomous provinces, autonomous oblasts. And so the smaller groups have had a lower level of autonomy, but still they had an autonomy in the time of Soviet Union. And these autonomous provinces and autonomous republics, which were located in one state. So in this case, in Georgia and in Azerbaijan, they had a relationship with the regional capital, with that republic's capital, with Baku or with Tbilisi, but also with Moscow. So Moscow tried to balance between the government of these union republics and the internal autonomous oblast and autonomous republics. And when Soviet Union dissolved, 15 republics of Soviet Union have 15 republics have signed a treaty of dissolution of Soviet Union. They declared themselves as the successors of the Soviet Union, and they recognized each other along the internal Soviet borders. They did not recognize the autonomous republics and autonomous provinces which were in the territory of those republics as independent. And this is what the international law has accepted. So these 15 republics are now member of the United Nations and are recognized by the United Nations. Only Russia recognizes South Ossetia and Abkhazia as independent, and no country recognizes Nagorno-Karabakh, or as their government, their regional government called itself Artsakh. as independent. So even not Armenia is doing that. It has to do with the fact that the president of Armenia at that time, Ter-Petrosyan, has signed this dissolution agreement of the Soviet Union. And actually, Armenia accepted that, recognized the neighbor Republic of Azerbaijan as within the Soviet borders. And the official stance of Armenia is that we support the Armenian movement, Armenian separatists of Nagorno-Karabakh, but it is neither officially part of Armenia, nor do we recognize it as an independent state. Armenia has said, if one state recognizes as independent, we will do that. But right now, even Armenia has not recognized it. It is a very special, complex situation now in the Caucasus. Okay. About the Soviet internal republics. So what was consist of Soviet Union? 15 republics: Russian Federation, Ukraine, Moldova, Belarus, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. Then in the Caucasus, we had Azerbaijan, Armenia, Georgia. In Central Asia, we had Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan. 15 republics, but inside were also other things. Okay, let's look at the picture in this region. So let's took also countries like Turkey, even Iraq in this case, Afghanistan and Iran. So the southern neighbors of Soviet Union, we see that there are overlaps in ethnicities. So there are, for example, Uzbeks living in all Central Asian republics and also in Afghanistan. We see that Armenians were concentrated in former Nagorno-Karabakh, but also in Georgia, and also Azerbaijanis were in Georgia. We see, for example, interesting facts. Everyone talks about the example of Kurds, which are divided. I mean, divided is not historically a good term, but let's say they are distributed in different countries. So they are in Iran, but also Iraq, Turkey, and Syria. This is one example of how people can use the ethnic group as a proxy. How? Okay. It is, for example, Iran is using the ideology of we are all Iranian peoples, Iranian civilization, and Kurds of Iraq belong to that civilization, tries to influence the Kurdish politics in Iraq. But the Iraqi Kurdistan is the only Kurdistan with autonomous government. It's nearly independent. It uses itself as I am the legitimate Kurdish states, and other Kurds in Iraq, in Syria, Turkey, if it has power, right? It has not that much power. They should be loyal to me. Iran also uses its influence as a Shiite state, Shiite religion, to influence these southern Iraqis who are Shiites. And so this is another proxy of Iran. And don't forget this thing. In Iran live much more Azerbaijanis than in the Caucasus. So exact numbers we don't know, because in Iran there is no ethnic census and people intermarry with each other. But let's say a figure of 18 million, 20 million is not a very exaggerated one. And in the Caucasus, so in the Republic of Azerbaijan and now in Georgia, they live some 9 million Azerbaijanis. So in this sense, Iran is using its Azerbaijani population, Azerbaijani language, and the fact that Azerbaijanis are Shiite Muslims, so they share the state religion with Iran. These are, Iran is using this to legitimizes its influence in the Republic of Azerbaijan. Yeah, and Turkey, for example, had previously a large Armenian population, but after the First World War, their number is diminished. There have been very sad situation in the last century in the wake of First World War. A lot of people have died. A lot of Armenians have died. Also, Muslim Turks and Kurds have died. But this is the Armenian intelligentsia claims that the Ottoman Empire did it on purpose and according to a plan. So they call it the Armenian genocide. And Turkey does not want to accept this term, Armenian genocide. Turkey thinks that it has consequences for Turkey if accepts that a genocide had happened. So then naturally, Turkey is inclined towards Azerbaijan. Turkey is inclined towards Azerbaijan, and for the fact to balance Armenians and Armenians temper their claims. Also, Turkey uses the language as a legitimizing factor. Like, okay, the language of Azerbaijan is similar to the language in Turkey, and say, okay, we are brothers. And Russia, in fact, what Russia is doing is very similar to all of these neighbors, but in a sense also more rational in the sense, but I wouldn't use this sense, but more natural, because the Russian influence in the former Soviet Union is stronger than other states' influence there. And I told you, during the Soviet times, the Moscow was an intermediator between these small units, these autonomous provinces inside those republics, and the Union republics. When Soviet Union collapsed, this system came into a shock. And this was the reason that some of these territories, autonomous territories, wanted to become independent. So the logic was, if Georgia is independent from Soviet Union, then South Ossetia is also independent. So, like Soviet Union does not accept and does not exist anymore, why should we be part of Georgia? Well, Abkhazia said also that. and Nagorno-Karabakh said Soviet Union is dissolved, and Azerbaijan became independent state. So we, as Nagorno-Karabakh, have also the right to become independent. Even inside Russia, some of these territories claim this, like Chechnya. Chechen General Dudayev said, okay, there was once a Soviet Union and it was a multi-ethnic state. It collapsed. And who says that we should remain inside the Russian Federation? So this was not the understanding of the 15 republics who signed the dissolution of the Soviet Union. They only recognized each other as the successor of the Soviet Union. And it is also not the belief in international law. So these smaller units are not recognized by international law. Russia recognizes South Ossetia and Abkhazia, and a few islands also do that, but no other country recognize that. Even Kosovo, in my understanding, the independence of Kosovo is illegal because it was against the consent of the mother country, Serbia. Nevertheless, like more than half of the states in United Nations system recognize Kosovo. In fact, the territorial integrity of states are important, but it is not everything. So international law has a bias towards the states. It favors the states because the states themselves have made this international law. The state themselves do not want to make themselves finish. They don't want to make themselves not working. For the same reason, they don't allow separatism, but it doesn't mean that separatism is prohibited. No, separatism is not necessarily prohibited. It depends on the power relation. So the international system, the international laws do not prohibit separatism, do not prohibit new states, but it depends on the situation in each case. If a country collapses and some parts of it can govern themselves, and the other countries can do recognize them, then it is also a recognized states. Okay, the conflicts in the former Soviet Union, these were more conflicts than only in the Caucasus, but Caucasus was a region compared to its territory. It contained a lot of conflicts, but let's look at other conflicts. So there is Transnistria conflict in Moldova. I lost this. Why? Let's do this perhaps. No, there is some technical problem. I cannot use this. I use another PowerPoint. It's better. Okay.
while we're changing the PowerPoints, it might be good also, because we're going to be having questions very soon. We have to wrap up the event latest
Yes.
at 12:30. So if anyone has additional questions, please feel free to send them into the chat. Somebody had already asked actually about the connections between Nagorno-Karabakh and Ossetia and Abkhazia. That question has already been addressed a little bit. I don't know if you can speak a little bit more to that, or if anyone else has other questions, that would also be good.
Well, I cannot fix this, but I think we go to this mode. It will do it. Okay, the conflicts. Tajikistan civil war, but also in Pamir, the Pamiri people had some separatist intention. The Osh, southern Kyrgyzstan, the conflicts between Uzbeks and Kyrgyz there. Then we talked about this Moldova and Transnistria. In the Caucasus was a conflict in Chechnya, but also a conflict between the Ingush and North Ossetia, South Ossetia in Georgia, Abkhazia in Georgia also, and Nagorno-Karabakh in Azerbaijan. These were the conflicts of the Soviet Union. Let's see the ethnic map of the region. It is, as you see, that it is not perfectly, these states are ethnically not homogeneous. Armenia is more or less homogeneous, but the other countries like Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Russia were not homogeneous. And when we look at the internal divisions, we see that there was some logic to give these territories to some ethnic groups, but still not always clear cut. And these, not the fact that the heterogeneity itself did not rose again towards conflict, but more so this internal autonomy. This enabled, empowered the regions, internal regions, autonomous provinces, to rise against the states in which they were located. So when you have autonomy, you can mobilize your population much better. And another reason why in the Caucasus there are mobilization in the Caucasus is very much possible, and I mean it's easier. It is looking at the checkered picture, the map of the Caucasus. It looks like mosaic, yes. And if ethnic groups are concentrated in relatively small territory, relatively homogeneous pockets of ethnic groups that border each other, it make mobilization strong because of the compactness. One aspect is compactness. Another aspect is that the enemy, let's say your target, is identifiable. You know where your adversary lives. It is easier to make a war. And also don't forget, especially in the North Caucasus, where people are really attached to their homeland. And so when the lands they are living in is small, the emotional attachment to the land is higher, and also the land is scarce. So this is a part of Soviet Union where land is really scarce. It's very different, for example, in Siberia, where the land is in abundance. So in this system, so actually two things, the autonomy and the nature of ethnogeography in the region gave to these conflicts. And when the Soviet Union, when Moscow was removed, then do you see this PowerPoint? Yes?
No, there's no PowerPoint.
Oh, it was my mistake. Okay. By the way, I'm now going to finish this PowerPoint anyhow, but I don't know how to share from below, is it? Yes, this screen. This was the picture of the Caucasus, yes? The map of the Caucasus. You see small, relatively homogeneous pockets of ethnic groups neighboring each other on the territory. And for the reason I said, this enhances the mobilization, enhances the identification of the adversary, and the emotional attachment on the land is high. This, in combination with the autonomy, gives these people power, so empowers these people to come into conflict with the hosting mother state, and so the separatist conflicts began in that way. Now for Karabakh, but my other PowerPoint is damaged, we cannot see. Karabakh, Nagorno-Karabakh, this piece of land was inside Republic of Azerbaijan. It was autonomous and it was mainly populated by Armenians. However, when the first Karabakh war was over, the Armenians did not control only Nagorno-Karabakh, but also 7 districts around it. So they controlled Kelbajar, Lachin, Fuzuli, Zangilan, what else? Agdam and Jibrail, yes, and Khobadli. They controlled 7 cities outside the Nagorno-Karabakh autonomous territory, and the front was like this. Was this part of Azerbaijan was under the Armenian control. In the new round of fighting, Azerbaijan could regain these southern territories itself. So they took Fuzuli, Jebrail, Zangilan, Hubadli, and near Lachin. And they took also a chunk of the former autonomous province of Nagorno-Karabakh. And Armenia, the Prime Minister of Armenia signed the ceasefire. By the means of ceasefire, Azerbaijan can control the territory that it was inside Nagorno-Karabakh, that it captured from them, can keep it, and can keep all this territory that it has liberated, and Armenia accepted to give in Lachin and Kelbajar back to the Azerbaijani sovereignty. And another important thing was there were made some regulation between Azerbaijan and Armenia to enhance transport. And this was something most Armenians inside Armenia were very sad about. What happened? the Russian army says so Russia comes in these liberated territories, so left by Armenians. Russia comes in those territories of Azerbaijan as peacekeeper, and Russia supervises the road between Stepanakert, between Nagorno-Karabakh and Armenia. So they have a corridor called Lachin corridor, they got it. On the other hand, Armenia should open up its roads that connects Azerbaijan eastern part with Azerbaijan Nakhchivan. So these roads, especially the southern road, comes under the Russian supervision, and Azerbaijanis can move this forth and back. My understanding, without Russian intervention, there could not be this solution. Actually, the solution, we can say Azerbaijan won the war, but with mediation of Russia, came into an agreement with Armenia. Russia is a country which is acceptable by Azerbaijan and by Armenia. Turkey has also given the peacekeepers, but under Russian supervision. Turkey is not acceptable by Armenia. And from the beginning, Russia said, I am totally opposed of any Western, let's say France or something, come inside the near abroad of Russia. And it was somehow surprising that Iran did not send peacekeepers there. So Iran had always said, we will deliver peacekeepers when they ask, and my understanding is that they asked, but due to internal politics of Iran, Iran did not show interest to deliver peacekeepers. Even Iran did not demand to open up its own railroad. So there is a railroad from Tabriz, Iran, goes to Jolfa, Nakhchivan, and Nakhchivan, Yerevan, Yerevan, Tbilisi. This part between Nakhchivan and Yerevan was cut off during the First Karabakh War. And the new peace treaty says that all Soviet roads should be reopened, but this thing is not reopened. So Iran did not get its railroad. And this says something about the geopolitical balances of power in the region. It shows clearly that Russia does not even tolerate a friendly neighbor like Iran. So they have some good relationship with Iran, but Russia regards the former Soviet territories as its own sphere of influence, geopolitical sphere of influence, and does not want other powers, other countries intervene there. And they can do some cooperation as long as they accept Russia as the main power. And the fact that Turkey sent peacekeepers under Russian supervision is bringing Turkey into a difficult situation, because as a NATO country, it placed its peacekeepers under the command of Russia, which is regarded as a hostile country. So Erdogan had always had not good relationship with the West, with NATO, and this Karabakh Karabakh war was also it seems to be a turning point, that Turkey is taking more distance from the West. And like I said, there were turning points that Russian power became stable. One was the Tajikistan civil war, won by pro-Russian section. The Chechnya separatist war was won by pro-Russian faction. Russia intervened in Georgia to punish Georgia, but it did not change the government. For me, I cannot understand, because Russia could do that. And but for that war, it gave Russia access to the tunnel and to the roads to deploy land army to the south of the Caucasus. And in Nagorno-Karabakh, we see that 7 districts of Azerbaijan and 1 district of Armenia came also under Russian supervision. And so Russia brought more land power there. And this is not totally irrelevant to the war in Syria. So Turkey is now checked better. So Russia has land power downside of the Caucasus, and Russia has become stronger than ever. So Azerbaijan, Armenia were both allies of Russia. Armenia regarded itself as a better friend with Russia, but Russia used this Karabakh conflict as a very let's say this, not used. Russia did what it was convinced should do. Russia did what it was its duty, but the result was very good for the empowerment, the enhancement of Russian geopolitics in the region. So I finish now here, and perhaps we can have questions. I did not want to take sides, political partisanship. I did not want to do that, but you can ask your question, and audience is legitimate to have political questions. So please ask and we can discuss.
First, I just wanted to say thank you very much to our speaker for today for a very wide-ranging presentation. We will have to actually finish up the event at 12:30, and so we have time for maybe one question. If
perhaps if people can remain, we can. If they can stay, we can have more questions.
I think it's because the Zoom account is going to be used by somebody else at 12:30, so we have to.
Oh, sorry, I didn't. Okay, I didn't know. Otherwise, I did shorter, but please come with questions.
And so somebody can raise their hand, write a question in the chat, or if nobody's forthcoming, feel free to unmute yourself and to ask the question.
And you said that some people said, what is the relationship between South Ossetia and Nagorno-Karabakh? Yes.
There was one question in the chat about is there any connection between the roots of regional conflicts? And if you wanted to elaborate more on that, that could be interesting. I noticed that also Hayrullah opened up his screen. I'm not sure if you had a question or not as well.
Okay, Hayrullah.
I have no question. I just great, thanks.
Okay, he just wanted to thank. So please feel free to go ahead about the connections.
About the connections, the causes of those conflicts are not the same, but the dynamics are the same. So in both conflicts, we see that an internal autonomous territory wanted to become separated after the dissolution of the Soviet Union from its host country. And so the dynamics are the same. After this dissolution of the Soviet Union, they could mobilize the people there. But if you say the causes, no. At most, we can say that Nagorno-Karabakh was the first conflict in the Caucasus, and perhaps it had a dominant effect, but not there is no direct relationship.
Perfect. Hamid has a question as well.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Babak, for your presentation. Actually, my question regarding to the peace building approach. How do you see, based on your the theory that you presented today, how do you see how we can actually make a roadmap for peace building, sustainable peace in the region? Specifically, I mean in Karabakh, because it's still we had kind of ceasefire in the region, but still the peace is not sustainable. We see kind of armed conflict in the borders with Armenia, or even actually the Russian peacekeepers couldn't arrange some, internal armed crisis. I have no idea, but what do you see based on that theory that you already presented?
Well, now it is very sensitive for Armenians. For historical reasons, they are attached to territory, and they want to have more space to have Armenian states. This is the Armenian position. For Azerbaijan, they have also made this whole conflict very political and very emotional. So at this point of time, it is very emotional. But I think it can change, because Azerbaijan has now regained 7 cities. So the pressure, public opinion pressure on Azerbaijan is less, and the only thing which can work is confidence building. So when people learn that they are not dangerous to each other, they are not enemy, they can live together. And I think one good project will be that Azerbaijanis and Armenians have more exchange with each other, more visit each other, and normalize a relationship. This is also what we see in Bosnia has happened between the Bosniaks, Serbians, and Croats. There is no hostility there anymore. And so the territorial issue is not changed in Bosnia, is not solved, but the sensitivity around territorial control is now in Bosnia much less, because people can get along. And I think this should be also the case in Nagorno-Karabakh. And actually, it is in Georgia. Georgia had never began politics of demonizing the separatist territory. Georgia always blamed it on Russia. So if South Ossetia was separated or Abkhazia, they blamed it on Russia. And Azerbaijan used these rhetorics that make it sensitive, and unfortunately the relationship between Azerbaijanis and Armenians deteriorated, and this should not be a natural thing, because in the history Azerbaijanis and Armenians were not enemies, and also in Iran Azerbaijanis and Armenians live side by side. And even in Turkey, Armenians and Turks live side by side. So why not in the Caucasus?
Perfect. Perhaps on that optimistic note, then, is a good.
I'm very optimistic. I think the problems will be much helped in the next 20 years, and within 20 years we should be very very realistic that it takes time, and after 20 years of normalization, then people are more ready to do some concessions.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So that was a wonderful event. And so we are going to be wrapping up a little bit now. Hamid, I'm not sure if you have any announcements for the Academic Club for Peace and Conflict Studies, if there are any other events in the future.
I think 10th of June, we will have one webinar with the Heidelberg Institute for Conflict Studies in Germany, that we want to talk about the methodological approach and some opportunity to work there. Yeah. So we will announce on our, I don't know, social media.
Perfect. So save the date. And once again, thank you to our speakers. Thank you for our organizers and for everyone who came and who asked questions. So thank you all very much.
And I thank you and thank the audience for attention.